So hello everyone, welcome to the Bitcoin Design Guide Jam session number 71. Let me pull up the notes document real quick. I misplaced that when I was working on that earlier. Where is it? Here it is. I'll share that real quick for taking notes. There you go. And I threw a handful of things in there. I'm sure, let me switch over my background here. We can go over any open PRs, but I don't think there's a ton there right now. Something important to talk about, and it's something we haven't talked about for a long time, is editorial policy. And that's a larger discussion for not just this conversation, maybe we can touch on it, but a bigger one. Because somehow it is decided what belongs in the guide and what isn't. And that conversation started 4 years ago. And occasionally it needs to be revisited. Very rarely, but it does. And now is one of those times. So that's something to talk about. And then, Michael, you have your PRs. Yashraj shared a draft for silent payments. And then I had a quick question about whether we should update, since Bolt 12 is going live in more wallets, if we need to update the daily spending wallet in relation to that. Do you have any other topics you'd like to add?
No. Christoph, your video disappeared. Oh, Michael's back. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Jitsi is managing that somehow. I kept seeing Christoph, but I stopped seeing you. So I think it's just, flailing internet connections.
And also, Arya and Paper, I don't know how many times you've joined these calls, but if you have any questions or wanted to talk about anything particularly, you are more than welcome to. I know we're diving right deep into serious business here, but we don't have to. Exactly. All right. Where do you want to start? Editorial decisions?
I think editorial policy is a good one.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll turn off my video. I have lags and stuff.
Okay. So the context of this is a page. Now I'm going to pull that up in my background real quick. So several months ago, I don't know how long ago, Matt Corallo posted a new Bitcoin improvement proposal, which in the meantime was assigned the number 353 for DNS payment instructions. That means that you get like something that looks like an email address. So it's kind of like a protocol, I think. And then your Bitcoin wallet can reformat that, and then just the way that it uses a domain to figure out the information, the server to talk to, it can figure out payment information. So it resolves, using DNS, it resolves something like an email address into Bitcoin addresses. Now that is really young. This proposal, only a few months old, and only, I don't know, months ago or so, it was converted into an actual Bitcoin improvement proposal. But Bitcoin improvement proposals, even though they are accepted and kind of merged in this official GitHub repository, it doesn't mean no one is forced to do anything about them. They can just sit there and no one ever implements them. Can totally happen, right? There's kind of an organic process of if people think this is worthwhile and it helps the users of their software or so, then they want to implement it, and then the users still have to decide. If no one ever uses it, then maybe the wallet providers also kick it out again, right? There's this kind of organic process of adoption or non-adoption happening. Matt Corallo, when he wrote this, we had these conversations in the design community about, what should the interactions be like? We kind of had these conversations about some of the specifications, about how the UI should behave. And then I created this PR for it. Here in my background, you can see the preview page for it. You can also access that from GitHub. I'll just share the link real quick. And now that page is pretty much ready. We went through a lot of back and forth. There's also something about lightning addresses in there, which is basically another way to make these email-like Bitcoin payment addresses work. And it's pretty close, but we also got some pushback. I think so John Carvalho pushed back a bit, and I think also Stephen DeLorme pushed back a little bit. I think his pushback is a little bit more hidden in some comment threads, and not in the main discussion in the pull request. Now, and the criticism is that this is so new, this is not consensus, and the Bitcoin design guide should be a bit more conservative and not include things yet that are not really broadly agreed upon, which is a very difficult thing to measure, right? But that's kind of the criticism so John Carvalho posted in this issue here. So here it says, I remain totally opposed to including non-standard, not used, speculative proposals inside of something that is meant to be a general guide. It is inaccurate for the context, misleading, and potential king-making behavior. Referring to this Bull 12 Bitcoin address proposal from Matt, which is by no means accepted by anyone, anywhere, nor is there anything even close to a consensus that should be done. So very, very strong wording, and you can go through every single one of these points. Like I asked about king-making behavior, because for me, like the guide is not something that defines things for the ecosystem. It's like people do whatever they want. But I don't know if that's helpful to really talk about every single word. But I think, and then we talked a little bit about it. And then he asks, for him, he says, I assume a goal is being a resource for onboarding designers and related roles into conventional and even modern knowledge and examples that may be relevant to their work. So I don't know, what does that make sense to you? I keep rambling on about this. What do you make of this? Are there things that are just too new, too cutting edge? Is it fine if we just add a label that says this is not standard yet, but we want to explain it anyways? Or what do you think?
So it's more about, if I understand correctly, it's more about the technology or the content related to technology that's not finalized within the ecosystem. At the same time, I feel like there's a lot of content like that already in the guide, because the guide tends to be forward-leading in most of the content that's in it. So it's a bit, I'm not sure yet. I'm still grappling. Yeah.
It's an interesting field of kind of range, right? I mean, I get the point that there are some things that are standard and then that are kind of widely used, but on the same at the same time, if we would only focus on this and only work on these widely accepted ones, then we are basically just kind of documenting things after the fact and maybe not influencing them, more proactively. So I wonder if there would be some way to designate things that are, let's say, non-standard or kind of more exploratory versus things that are kind of fully consensus approved.
Yeah, to add two, respond real quick to 2 points you made. One is you said influencing things. And the way that I look at something like this is not that we want to influence it, but there's like a technical description, and then there's an exploration of what this might look like in an interface if people were to implement it, and preparing that could help people decide whether it's a good idea or not. So it's more like adding another layer of documentation or exploration around it, not to force it something, but to make it easier for the ecosystem to decide whether it's good or not with the proper disclaimer. That's how I would present it. And to your second point, in the page about stabilizing Bitcoin value, we have a note that says this is a rapidly evolving space. There's not one accepted standard at the moment. These solutions may involve custodians and closed source technology. Below, we will attempt to explore these ideas and weigh the pros and cons of each one. This is not an endorsement of the techniques, it's just to help you learn. So that's an example. And I'll share the link to that as well. Yep.
Yeah, I probably so I didn't mean to want to influence people in terms of
I know what you
being
mean.
an
I totally know what you
influencer,
mean.
or this what maybe John was referring. Yeah, so the idea being that, I mean, if there is something, how could this look like? It is a form of kind of forming opinions, right? Or it's an additional. I think the word layer is probably a good one, or an additional kind of aspect to a topic. So yeah, just to clarify.
Yeah.
Do you think it might be useful to have a sort of a black and white, yeah, paper cycle? So this is just what I was going to say. Do you think it might be useful to have a sort of very black and white label to different pieces of content where we say, well, this label represents this and that represents that, and this label is because we understand that the technology is not fully implemented and being used out in the wild yet, but this is just some guiding content on that topic. And then the other label would be for things that are already implemented and out in the wild. But I don't even know if those two labels would be appropriate. I'm just, yeah.
Yep.
Um, yeah. Hey guys, how's everybody doing? Uh, nice. Yeah. Well, I love chiming in, especially on these topics where, yeah, I mean, yeah, I have no business even like talking about these things, you know. So, uh, that's like a disclaimer. But anyway, just to go on about it, I feel like because like we are a design guide, and so like we can only design something like for which we have like a requirement or a spec, right? And we are sort of like laying out the best practices or like advice for designers who want to implement something. But if that something is is like not agreed upon and people have problems, or if it is too new and people have not like like people have expressed disagreements about it, then I feel like the requirement and spec layers below the design are not like solidified yet, that is like one way of looking at it. Like for example, if I have to because I'm working on silent payments, uh, the silent payments protocol BIP 352 has been drafted for a long time, has received a lot of reviews, and it has a broad like consensus in the community that this is a good idea, we want to do this, and all of those things. And so I felt like when I was trying to explore the UX, I have a bunch of things that I can like take for assume that these are right, and that people agree on that and things like that. And I think that is where people might have problems, where they say, hey, like this human readable addresses thing, I don't agree that this should be a thing. And I mean, I'm not saying I don't agree. I'm saying people might have that where you don't have like a rough consensus or something like that. And if you put something like that in the guide, then it seems like we are kind of thinking or assuming that it has agreement and consensus, and that is why we are coming out with a design advice about that. I think that is like one perspective. I don't know if this helps, but
Yeah. No, I mean, your opinion is as valuable as everyone's, right? Where you don't have to feel like you can't chime in on this stuff. So bring it, bring it all. Um, yeah, I wonder what the best way forward is. Maybe we can articulate. So I'd like to create an issue for it, because this conversation shouldn't just happen here in this call between six people, and maybe not just in a Discord thread that people don't know about either, but it should happen in some type of public place. Maybe I'll try to formulate it a little bit and give like three different directions this could go, and then maybe people can just we can just see where that takes us. And then I think I'd like to invite more people to chime in, people who have been closely involved with the guide, basically, who have created previous content previously and maybe have other some perspectives there. Yeah.
And I think Christoph, if that is sort of holding the one PR from being merged, if I understood correctly, or if I didn't understand correctly, if it's holding the one PR from being merged, I would say maybe also an idea to set a timeline around when we reach consensus, so that it doesn't end up being a 4 month long discussion. I mean, I'm just throwing out an idea there,
Mm.
just, because I know some discussions can take a very long time and there's a lot of back and forth, and you kind of just say, okay, we vote, and then this is the general consensus, and then in a month we decide, and then
Yeah.
the PR can be merged. So
Yeah, and it could be
yeah.
something else too. And right, so that's in one of the comments somewhere, I think I asked about this here. Like, how do we know when something's accepted? It's a very soft thing. Does it, if let's say three broadly used wallets have it implemented, does that mean it's accepted, or how do we figure that out? I mean, I'm also totally happy if the decision is to not put it in the guide. I'll just post it on my blog for now and just say like, here's some content. It was decided it wasn't ready yet, but I want it to be live, so I'm just going to put it on my blog. And if it ever gets accepted, then we can put it in the guide. And if not, then the content's still there for someone if that is a topic that they want to read about. So I'm really not. I don't have to force this through in one way or another. So yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Putting some type of criteria around making a decision. Yeah, I don't know. Don't you guys feel like, and gals sometimes feel like we need to be like the cutting edge. We need to review the latest stuff into the future
But
and
it
just
is.
see,
That's
you know.
but that's what it is. It's most of the content in the guide anyway. It's just feeling around an ecosystem, understanding what's the new stuff that's coming in, and then building possible UX design solutions for those. Because those are not the end all UX design solutions. They're just, this is the idea, and take with it and run with it and do what you wish, which most designers do anyway. So yeah.
Yes, so maybe some of these pages or pieces of content could get the status of a design guide candidate,
Design
where
guide improvement
we
proposal.
can revisit it. Exactly. Where where it still is kind of get some exposure and can get some feedback and visibility, but it's yeah, that was just a thought that came to mind.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, some of it is also the defensive thinking. If, let's say, some shitcoiner comes around and wants to create this content, then how do we have an editorial policy around this? Because I think that's sometimes the thing, that people are just really afraid that there's a slippery slope. Um, yeah.
So would the editorial policy be, and that's just coming back to what Christoph said, would the editorial policy be maybe a one or two pager? It feels like there's no editorial policy that exists at the moment. The editorial policy happens live in public, on the calls, in discussions, in GitHub. Everything's very open. So is it creating a new editorial policy, which would be a document, or is it updating something that maybe already exists? Here it is. Oh, right. We have the contribution page. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I don't think we have this defined here very clearly. This is more about how to write rather than the content.
Maybe it's an update to one of the content guideline pages, the one that you've just brought up, and extending the content there to something that's a bit more, around the cutting edge technology, and then also around. I mean, it is called the Bitcoin Design Guide, but then again, there are related technologies that are half Bitcoin, half, So, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, are we supposed to like even have a content like a content policy like it sounds kind of official? So
Yeah, I think it's helpful. I think it's good to have.
yeah, I mean, it could be something like if you do this, and if you don't do this, then your contribution might is likely to have a more positive response. I remember reading these kind of things when I
Yeah,
go to different like forums, right? I think I like that because like they are like not saying like these are the rules, but they are just saying that hey, like this is the community for Bitcoin only, or design only, or like accepted only, or whatever the criteria we come up with, and then we don't give out rules, but say hey, like this is a community about A, B, and C, and if you like do these things, you are likely to see like reviews and things like that. Otherwise, you might not.
yeah,
Something like that. Like it's not a definitive thing.
yeah, yeah. That made me think about this life cycle document that we have, which is super old, and maybe we need to highlight that more, because the ideally you can avoid situations where people come in super late right before merging and say like this is a no-go, by being working in public the whole time. Even when you just have an idea, you can say, I want to work on this. What does everyone think? Or you can make a rough sketch. And then once people kind of stumble across it, ideally the strong opinions come out very early on rather than so late in the process.
Yeah, yeah, I like that.
Okay, thank you for all the input. I'll try to put something together there in a new GitHub issue about clarifying this. And it's going to be a hot discussion. Ready for it. Paper psych that separate foundational material to advanced topics. Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to something else. How about Yashraj? Did you want to talk about your silent payments? Speaking about new content.
Yeah, sure. I shared a document yesterday. Yes, and what I like realized after we did the talk, um, then by that time I had started like just like writing down thoughts about this, and in the week since, like the last 2 weeks, I have been trying to write down uh, what what insights or general design related advice or ideas that we could have around silent payments. Now, one of the things I discovered was that because like this is at least my opinion, and you guys, after you read it, you guys can like come back and say, hey, this makes zero sense, or this is wrong. But like my like what I noticed is that there are a lot of like subtle changes to very fundamental things that silent payments introduces potentially, and I found it kind of hard to like think about that in the right way, if that makes sense. And so because of that, and plus like everything is like interrelated, and so if you make a change to like the receiving part, like it changes something related to backup, or like if you change something related to receiving, it changes something related to sending and things like that. And because of that, I have found myself getting like running around in circles a bit. And I thought, hey, like, I think at this point, the best way is to just share like this document and like have your guys feedback on this, like, hey, this is like, for example, one of the usual things that I think go wrong is that when we are not super duper clear about what we want to say, we say the same thing in different ways again and again and again. And I did that a bit, and then deleted a lot of content and things like that. And so I think what this draft represents is like the next iteration from the deck and the talk. It's a bit more evolved and a bit more educated and a bit more thought over uh, uh, like document. And the idea here is that most of this would go in the how it works page, but then some of it might also go in some of the pages that we have existing, like the contacts page or coin selection and things like that. And so those decisions we have not made this. I mean, I have not really made them yet in the document. And if you guys think that, like your guys' feedback about those things will also be super duper useful. Like, for example, I think Christoph, in your background, you like have this section about contacts, right? And and like, even if we do manage to agree on the content itself, one decision is, hey, does it go on the contacts page, or does it stay here in the silent payments page? Or is it that we have something in the silent payments page and we update, like we make updates or additions in the contacts page also, and things like that. So this is a pretty early stage document. I think that the thoughts seem pretty crystallized. I don't know if you guys had a chance to go through the document or at least skim through it, and if you guys had any thoughts, questions, corrections, or things like that on that. I don't know. Yeah, that's.
I did poke through it a little bit earlier today. How about everyone else?
Full
I,
transparency
I
on my,
didn't yet.
yeah, first time for me that I'm actually looking through the document, but I can
Okay.
put it on my to-do list to go through it later this week. But I think it would be useful to know what kind of feedback would be useful at this
Mhm.
stage, because I feel like
Yeah.
with all the different forms of content, at the initial stages when it's in its very raw form, it needs a different type of feedback, and then as it moves
Mhm.
through to its final
Mhm.
stages, it needs different type of feedback. So
Yeah, exactly. I think I totally agree. So, for example, like this, I think at this stage, my I would be like seeking feedback about, are the ideas in this, do the ideas in this document sound right? Right, like, so for example, I would not be looking for saying, hey, like you can like revert this sentence, or like there is a typo in this sentence. I think it's too early for that. I'm not sure even if the fundamentals are right, like if the ideas and concepts, like the thoughts are right, if they make sense to people, then we can go over some of the like other things, right? For example, I'm in the process of creating some of the mock-ups, but like if the ideas are wrong, then the mock-ups are going to be wrong because they don't reflect something that people think makes sense. So yeah, I mean, a very early draft about ideas and concepts, and like it could be also be something like, hey, like the idea is right, but you have like expressed it in a totally wrong way. Like people are not going to understand this. That could be something else. Something else could be, hey, like you like just assume that because you understand this, other people understand this, and you what you actually should do is that you should be explaining this part and something that I have not even done, right? So it could be that kind of feedback would be awesome. And then of course the unknown unknowns. I have no idea that I did something wrong, and you guys see it. So just reach out and like hit me over the head and say, "Hey, what about this?" And like, okay, yeah, sure, sure, okay, yep, that's it.
Um,
Yeah, I
so
guess it's always tricky to put stop topics like these that what's the scope of this kind of how it works page, and how do you where do you draw the line to what should be in this page and not? Um, so I'll definitely go through it.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Sorry, Christoph. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead if you want to respond to Michael. Go for it.
No, I wanted to ask if Mo was asking like what kind of feedback do I want? Did I kind of answer that? Hopefully.
I think from what I understand from your reply is that you have this general lens that you looked at the topic through. And through this lens, there's maybe 4 or 5 different topics that came up. So you'd like to know, would it be useful to have those larger topics in the content? If yes, if no. So it's more at the larger topic areas, and if there's any topic areas you might have missed out on, or we think that you might need to think more about. Did I understand correctly?
Yeah, yeah, sure. I mean, that's surely part of it. The other part of it that I was saying is that like, are the ideas and thoughts that I'm expressing, are they right or wrong? Because maybe I'm too much in my head and I just like got a bunch of things wrong. And if like, so that's about like the ideas part.
Yeah, makes sense. It makes sense. I get it. I know with what feedback. Would you like us to leave feedback directly in the Google document, or is there anywhere else you'd like the feedback?
I think if you guys think that like it can be captured in the Google document comment, that's fine. If you guys want to reach out and like DM me, say, hey, this is like this is so wrong. I don't even want to read it. If it's something like that, that can also be in a comment. Or if it is like a huge piece of text that you don't feel comfortable like putting in a comment, just like DM me, or we can have a discussion on one of these calls. So yeah, yeah.
And just one more thing to add, Yashraj, at this stage, I know because we worked together on on the pay join one as well. Um, don't think too much now, or worry too much now about which part of the guide things can be separated into. Just focus on the content and about communicating what you feel needs to be communicated. And later on, stuff that would need to come out or go into different parts, it can always come out. Now it's just about really fleshing out just the main body and having the main structure. So don't worry about which, splitting it out at this point. It will be fine anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so how I would go about it would be I would assume that this is a separate page that could either be under the daily spending wallet or the savings wallet that says, if this reference design were implemented with silent payments, here are the changes that would be necessary in this application. And then talk about the receive screen, talk about transactions, just talk about all these things and exactly mock up what those screens would look like with an explanation. So I think that how it works is great. It's super helpful. But I feel like considering we're focused on designers and product builders, the how it works is always like a secondary thing, and the reference design, that's the primary thing. So the how it works is kind of supporting, right? And the mock-ups and how it fits into a real product is the primary thing. And then if someone has questions, they go to how it works. And how it works is always super important when you learn, when you prepare this content, you learn a lot, and it's great to have it in there. But I feel like it's still secondary. So I would just mock up, like you said, you attacked it from like maybe the more like I see way more text in the document than images, which to me looks like you attacked it more from the logical angle. Maybe attack it from the opposite side with the UI mockups now, and then just see where these things mash together. But my expectations right now would be assumption, not expectation, but assumption would be that it's a separate page, and maybe some other pages link to it. Like the context might link to it. Like, oh, the context could also include silent payments. More on that over there on the silent payments page or so.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think that's awesome feedback. I think I agree with both of you, and like that was like something. I think I am a Christoph going through that phase where like initially it was all the logical side I'm approaching, and then I think in the last week or the last 10 days I have begun to like uh, come to it from a more like psychological or a UI UX side. So for example, I realized that hey, like if we have static codes and you just have to share them once, like people are not going to be using the receive button that often, because I could just post my silent payment address in three places, like my social media, my WhatsApp, and my email signature, and that's it. Like people are not even going to be asking me to like share my receive code. I mean that's like 99% of people done, I guess, right? Or if I'm like so that made me hey like think like hey, does this like change things? How does this change things, if it changes it at all? And so like I have just like tried to lay down the ideas and just assume that it would go on the how it works page. But I think I totally agree with what you said too. Like it could be a it could be a set of dozen changes to a dozen different sections in the savings wallet, for example. It could just be that too. But like I think just like Mo said, once we agree that these ideas and the content is right, then we can take a decision on that. And even that decision, I'd be happy to take it with sorry I mean I would ideally want to take it in consensus with all of you guys, right? I mean we could arrive at hey, this makes sense that it should go in like this. And yeah.
Yeah. And take a look at the Michael's time-based recovery, which is a subpage of the savings wallet. It says, in this reference design, we look at the variations of the
uh,
savings wallet, specifically, and then it talks about what's different to the default one, and then goes over all the changes. So that might be a good template
uh,
there. Yeah, and make
okay.
sure to, you can also, if you want people to point out your mistakes, you can also intentionally sneak in mistakes, and that way you can figure out if people are actually reviewing your stuff.
I mean, I think I make a lot of mistakes on my own. I have never needed help with making mistakes or try to do it deliberately. So I think I think good on that.
It's you made a great start for now, Yashraj. You dove deep into the topic, which is why you're the right guy for the subject. And now, as Christoph said, think about the reader, think about the user of that page. The user are likely going to be product designers. So the product designers are going to be needing the designs themselves. So maybe the next stage is thinking about the designs. As Christoph said, the send screen, the receive screen, what are those going to look like? And start to put together those designs in whichever way works best for you. Some people use pen and paper. Maybe you want to use some very basic squares in FigJam. Just do it whichever way you feel works best for you.
Yeah.
I was just listening to what is it, Bitcoin Explained. Um, they had another episode about silent payments a few days ago.
Is that a
Yeah,
Shars podcast? Shars and Aaron.
yeah, yeah. They had
Oh,
Josie and I want to say Linus, but that's not it.
no, Ruben.
Ruben, yes. They had those
Okay.
two on there to get more into some of the details of silent payments. So those could be linked too on the How It Works page as
Mm-hmm.
kind of more
Yeah.
technical deep dives, maybe.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, at this point, I almost feel afraid of the taking in any more technical content because as you guys said, we have to think in terms of people and things like that. I think I have been trying to do it, but yeah, I mean, a few days back, like at five in the evening, I had like a massive scare. I was like, oh my god, is everything wrong? And then I was like, cause I just like realized some stuff and things like that. So yeah, I'm not sure if I should like go to the episode right now, you know.
Yeah, there's a certain technical level past which we can safely ignore things.
Right, yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it's kind of tricky to feel that out sometimes, but it's okay.
It's
Okay,
it'll
yeah.
be fine in the end, Yashraj. You managed just fine with PayJoin, and it's just going to be the same for this as well. So just keep on going, one step at a time. It'll be fine.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing right now is that I have been in my own head just like thinking about all of these interconnected things for so long. And if you guys can just like go through it quickly or in however detail you guys can, I think that kind of thing will be super useful.
Okay.
All right,
Um,
we'll do.
okay, Michael, you you had a lot of fun with GitHub the last few days.
Yeah, and you were the primary recipient of that fun. But no, so I what I basically ended up doing is um, closing all PRs that were open and not merged yet, and I'm gonna be reopening them in a more kind of logical order because it kind of grew. The whole thing grew over time, and by the time the initial PR was merged, there were so many changes downstream that when I tried to rebase the second chapter, the backup PR, it was basically unresolvable. So I just copied everything out, closed all the PRs, deleted all the branches, and opened a new one for the second chapter, and that worked actually pretty well. Um, it wasn't that complicated, and it also includes all the feedback that I already got. So so that since the PR review history and everything is now uh, successfully gone. It's not gone. It's just in the new PRs, which will be way smaller, and it's just going to be one PR per page, so that it's also easier um, to maybe review. But as I said, the feedback is in there, and so we have currently uh, one PR that is about co-signing co-signers, onboarding co-signers, and then tomorrow I'll be adding the additional ones, and I'll be rebasing regularly to to avoid this type of mess the next time. But
Um,
that's basically it. And one second or final point, maybe the feedback from Steve. I mean, it's a valid point to um, to discuss. I'm still actually happy with the reference design because it addresses one specific use case and one that is also has a lot of relevant content for regular multi-sig or multi-key wallets. But what I'm probably going to do is open an issue to add a page maybe, or to add some content around different type of inheritance setups with their trade-offs, respective trade-offs. But I want to get the reference design done first before I really get to that. Yeah, Yashraj, go ahead.
um, Hey, Michael, I was about to ask you, like, are you adding any content, or is it just the same content, but the PRs are new?
Same content, PRs are new. So one issue was that I created the initial PR that has been merged a couple time or a couple weeks back, and then this stopped at the wallet creation. Then I worked on backup, and after creating that PR, I noticed, oh, there's something missing in between. So part of the third PR was something that should have been addressed earlier. So the rebasing problems are a curse, but also a blessing in the sense where I can now just make the structure much more kind of logical and in chronological order, so that it's kind of easier to get the merge. But there's no new content.
Awesome. Another thing I wanted to quickly talk about. Again, this is kind of way over my head, right? I feel kind of unqualified, but I hope it kind of makes sense. Is and this like relates to what Michael was just saying and what Steve's feedback and what we were just like discussing about silent payments, where it should go. I think this like topic is like related to all of these things. Is that um, uh, in the content policy, like I feel like the reference design should be like the parts that super solidified, super accepted, super agreed upon, and things like that. And then other sections of the guide can have like things with less finality, things that are not that concretized yet. And I think like a framework such as that would like allow us to have content of different, of like different things. So for example, I think Steve's feedback was something like, hey, like this is like there, like I felt like the feedback was something like this is like the reference design is like about very solidified things and very concrete approach and things like that. So and same thing might like go for silent payments, is like we could say right now we will just put it in the how it works page, or just like those two or three things, and then after a year, after a dozen wallets have adopted it and they have done their own designs and the actual best practices have emerged, then maybe we can include it in the reference design, you know. So yeah, I know a bunch of thoughts in there, but does it make sense?
I wouldn't worry about it. I think silent payments is a very specific protocol and interaction. You see it live in wallets. I feel like there's very global consensus generally around it. But reference design it's like a whole product, right? There are thousands of decisions to make. What type of technology you use, how you combine it, the role of the software creator. There's like so much stuff, but it has to be specific. Otherwise, it's not like you can't really decide any and make any specific design decisions. I think Steve was just looking for different content. He was looking for a comparison of different techniques rather than a specific product direction being fleshed out. So it's just something additional.
I think it's
Yeah.
a nice lens that he looked at it at, because I think that's going to be the lens that most people are going to look at. Is like, okay, I can, create an inheritance scenario in my wallet, but what's the best for me right now? And maybe that just could be made more clearer, or maybe it's about fleshing out one part of the existing content. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's so much about the use cases of how people themselves. I think Steve was more looking for um, if, let's say, there are 5 different teams in different parts of the world with different target audiences, they might end up constructing the wallet differently. Some might use time locks, some might use Frost, some might use PSBTs or so. Some might use just very basic wallet stuff and rely more on, let's say, the legal framework, or I don't know, family bonds, or like use less technology, rely more on the social dynamics or so. I think that's kind of the thing that he was
So
pointing
it's
at.
the development lens, actually, not the this was more the user lens, so it's the development lens. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, like, but like Kujan, like I have to say that Michael Spear and the work he has done, like it's so awesome that I think it was just like a different expectation for Steve, but I think like for me, like the kind of the reference design work that he has done, I mean, it's amazing in my opinion. It's awesome.
Yeah, I don't think Steve's feedback takes anything away from that. He's just looking for
Yeah,
additional,
yeah,
different content. Yeah, concur.
Yeah, and it's still I think it's a valid point that the reference design focuses on a like more narrower, more specific thing, right? Because it has to be specific. So I think it's a valid point to maybe open it up a little and discuss maybe which, based on your personas or your target audience, which kind of direction should you go as a product team. So I think that's actually a good addition to this.
Yeah, yeah, and that one lens is definitely the financial viability. If it costs 100
Yeah,
euros or so per year to renew those to your time locks or whatever, then that's might not be something a lot of people want to do, or in certain parts of the world and whatnot.
yeah, exactly. But I mean, also if you use services like Unchained or Casa, then you pay way more than
Yeah,
$100. So it's exactly, it's kind of these different um, it's
yeah.
of things.
Speaking of fees, I found this interesting statistic recently. I think it's the United Nations or someone. They have for remittances, they have a goal of 3%, that remittance fees should never be more than 3%. And most services around the world are more than that. So it's interesting that some entity has figured out that there's a goal of what fees should be, right? And and I don't know what they do to actually try to make that happen, but I think that's something interesting to think about. What should our standard for fees be? Because then if you know that for inheritance, then you could say, well, then you can have logical answer that, okay, if it's more than this amount, then yes, you can go for a paid service. It's worth it, or go for this other solution, or don't use that solution because you're going to lose so much.
It's interesting that that 3% number is so close to the 2% inflation target numbers that everybody throws around.
Yeah. Cool. So you got some action, but I think are you starting to work on some type of extra comparison, or do you see that as completely separate from wrapping up your the reference design?
Uh, I see it. What I would like to do first is wrap up the design. So meaning get all the PRs out or in order and get them out. I think that is attainable in the next 2 days, and then start working on this. So I'm going to create an issue for this and some of the thoughts there so that we can maybe have a discussion on GitHub, just like you mentioned for this policy discussion. So have it there, clarify it, flesh it out there a little bit, and then yeah, get working on it. But the reference design is definitely my priority for now.
Okay.
Sounds good, Michael. Do you need us is there anything we can do to help in terms of feedback with the reference design? I know that the first part is already out, or will you just like to ping us when you're ready?
Yeah, I mean, all of you here have already provided a lot of valuable feedback, so that's baked in.
Okay.
So what I'm probably gonna do is once the PRs are out, just gonna say, hey, they're here. They're I think good to be merged, and that's it. And of course, any feedback on there or change requests, I'll deal with.
Awesome. Let's make it happen. One more thing that I was on the list was on the task list here was in the daily spending wallet under requesting Bitcoin. We have this thing about how you can basically navigate between different types of addresses. Should we put Bolt 12 in there now that this Bolt 12 is rolling out? And related to that, we had tried Phoenix last week. I created an issue in the Phoenix repo suggesting improvements to the receive screen, which is here, and already got some feedback on it. So yeah, I think it's nice to be in that conversation right now around Bolt 12. It's very current, so maybe we can just use that to update the guide. What do you think?
Makes a lot of sense to me to add it into the guide.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
mean,
also
it's so
think
cool
so.
to see that. Sorry. Yeah, so because no one is saying anything, uh, just like want to shill my salary payments bags, right? I mean, that's what we do. But like, I think Port 12 and silent payments, I think, are going to change the UX in a big way. At least I hope they do, because both of them now allow a static payment, like payment address almost. Like th- pay me with this, and then the users can pay any number of times. Both of them are static, and so this constant sharing of addresses or invoices and things like that is now going to stop. And so I think Bolt 12 and silent payments go together really well in that area.
Yeah, then pack it all in a BIP21 and then pack it into a human readable address, and then we've achieved nirvana.
And then get it into like your DNA, and you get a tattoo of it. And I think that's the final step. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then on top of my house, I can have like a QR code, so anybody from the sky, they can pay me.
Those aliens who are observing us.
Yeah. Airdropping payments from aliens. That would be nice.
Be cool. One thing that I was wondering about is, let's say you send me something to my Bolt 12 address. Does my wallet know it came from that Bolt 12 address?
That is a great question. For silent payments, the answer is no, unless you use the other features in silent payments.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, maybe something. I mean, I have Android and iOS. Maybe I can test it out, because the Phoenix iOS does not have contacts, but the Android version does for whatever reason. Maybe I can try it out and post about that. Yeah, does anyone else want to go on a crusade and go into all these Bolt 12 supporting GitHub repos and just post design improvements?
I don't want to volunteer my time. It sounds very fun, but I think I have my plate fairly full at the moment. It would be a luxury to commit to doing that. So I won't do that just yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Me neither. We're gonna start traveling on Thursday, so I want to keep it to the reference design and to Bitcoin Core at the moment.
Yeah, makes sense. Nice job with that transaction send video that I saw there on Twix.
Yeah, I finally kicked myself to do it or to finish it last week. Got some interesting feedback there. Have to go over it again.
Yeah, I saw that feedback. I think part of the question around this feedback is that, can a normal person actually do this?
Yeah,
That,
I mean, what you could do is you could the easiest solution where you don't have to implement anything is to just send this small payment and then go to the transaction ID and let the user, or maybe you have to do something, but you could have let the user kind of click a button, send to the same address, where you just enter the amount and that's it. So that could be something even simpler, but it's less explicit than of a feature.
yeah. And dumping the transaction in a mempool with a very low fee, so it doesn't get confirmed, but the other person can see it, is interesting, because
Yeah, that was I thought that, yeah, that was cool. Yep, we'll keep on with this.
Okay, cool. Anything else? Anyone else? All good? Aria, paper psych.
Nothing from my side.
Sorry.
No, nothing from my side. I'm gonna head out as well. The weather is pretty good here in the Netherlands. As you can see, I'm sitting outside and having this call. So, yeah.
Awesome, cool. Then enjoy the weather. Thanks for joining all. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, everyone. Nice to see everyone as well.
Awesome.
Bye, everybody.
Have
Peace
a nice
out.
week,
Take care.
guys. Take care,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Bye bye.